Hey guys, welcome to episode 70 of The Green Life. In today's episode, we're going to discuss healing modalities that really can take you deep into your subconscious and allow you to grow as a person and really understand yourself a little bit better. I have invited a friend of mine, Antonia Beamish, to be on the show because she's a kinesiologist but also practices soul contract readings and divine healing, which are the two modalities I want to focus on because I have experienced them myself for the first time and I really found them powerful. So I think you will love to learn about them. I also feel that because we've been discussing healing and growing on the podcast quite a few times, especially with my solo ones, I would love to give you the tools to go a little bit deeper into the healing part. And I really think that what Antonia does is that powerful. So before we get into the show, I just want to give a big shout out to Nama for the J2 juicer. As you know, guys, I love my J2. So if you go into the show notes, you can get a discount code for 10%. And I really think that you love it. I don't make any money from this. I just asked for a discount code for my audience. So enjoy. However, I do have an affiliate account with Dr. Morse's Herbs, which I absolutely love using. And of course, I like how Dr. Morse explains everything about the body. He was on the show too. And as you probably know by listening to the episode, he's a fantastic human. And I really love what he does, but also really appreciate what a great master herbalist is because his potions are powerful. I use them myself, especially when it comes to kidneys and lymphatic system, and I really do feel the difference every time I use them. So if you go into the show notes and click the link, it will take you to the website, and if you purchase from there, I do get a commission that helps the podcast stay alive. Then I also have the link to my beautiful farm retreat here in Portugal, Ecodharma Village, which is open for the summer, as I mentioned before, but also is available for you if you want to book it for next year. If you're a practitioner, you want to come with a group and experience eco holidays here in northern Portugal. And I also have one of my retreats happening at the end of September, which is going to be wonderful and powerful, and it's around autumn equinox. So if you're available, do come and check it out. Okay, back to the episode. Talking to Antonia is such a pleasure because she's such a wonderful human, and I really want you to learn about these two wonderful modalities outside kinesiology, soul contract and divine healing. So guys, you are really in for a treat. Let's welcome our guest. Hi, Antonia. Hi, Antonia. Thank you so much for coming on to The Green Life today. How are you?
It is such a joy to be here. I can't even put it into words. I am so excited. You know, I've never been a guest on a podcast, so this is very special. And yeah, I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you. And it is special, in fact, because I invited you because you are a special person doing very special work. And I think my audience really needs to hear about this. The world needs to hear about this because we all really going through a shift, trying to heal. I mean, the conscious people are trying to heal a little bit more consciously, so more aware, with more awareness. And I feel the work that you do is such a great way to really support that growth and that healing that is so needed. And so I really thought it would be brilliant to have you here, especially because I've experienced firsthand your work, so I can speak for it and I can totally endorse it. So, you know, as it helped me and it helps me as we go forward, I really feel like it will help a lot of people. So before we get into the actual work though, and what it means and actually the story behind the fantastic therapies that you do, I'd love to hear a little bit about you, your story, and how you even got into this space, why you became a healer, what attracted you to this wellness space, industry.
Such a good question because you can look at different points of my life and there's a little key that has unlocked a door that's led me to this point where I'm in now. But you would look at them on their own and think, oh, they're not really related. So my first memory, I think, is being taken to an acupuncturist by my mum when I was younger. And she had this sort of home studio in her garden. And I thought, this is a cool life. I wouldn't mind working from home and helping people. So I think the seed was sown when I was very young. And then so your listeners might not know that Chantal and I worked together at a boutique fitness company in London for about 4 years or something. And it was actually there that I discovered kinesiology, which is a beautiful therapy that connects mind and body to get to the emotional root cause of symptoms. And while I was working at said company, I suffered from pretty bad adrenal burnout, stress. I was tired, bloated, in tears, exhausted. I was pushing myself so hard. And someone said, "Oh, you should go see my kinesiologist, Kim." And another friend said, well, my mum actually said, "You should go get some blood tests." So I did both. And my sessions with Kim, I think it was the second session, I had a huge emotional breakthrough about being worthy of love. And it was a few weeks, I mean, and it was a big release. And I didn't even know it was there. The unconscious became conscious. And this is the work that I do basically. And a few weeks later, I met the man that I would be with, for the following 3 years, a real beautiful relationship that I had. That was all due to releasing this misguided unconscious belief I had about not feeling worthy of a relationship or being in love. So yeah, that's where it all started. And it built gradually, it's the people I met like you kind of really sparked me into the road of veganism, along with our lovely friend Malgo. And then lots of little keys, kind of like little things just added up to this big, beautiful picture of where we are now.
Yeah, totally. And I love that you started kinesiology way before you actually began studying it. So it was as, as a client, a patient, and breaking through your own obstacles and work, and then, actually deciding to become a kinesiologist. So can you tell me about that little step that you took, because you were still working at the boutique, at the fitness boutique company that we were at?
It's a funny story because I'd had this beautiful kinesiology session and I was falling in love. And at the same time, I thought, oh, I really want to do something different with my life. I was feeling very trapped and stuck. I know a lot of people relate to this, working for someone else behind a desk for 9, 10 hours a day. I just felt so, yeah.
More like 40.
Yeah. Some days it was long. Some days I managed to get outside and breathe some fresh air. I felt like a trapped bird in a cage, and I thought, oh, I really want to do something and do some kind of healing modality. And kinesiology was just not even on my list. It's hilarious when I think back. I looked at everything else. I explored all the other options. I looked at, Reiki or hypnotherapy, or, I could train in acupuncture, or I could go to Australia and do naturopath nutrition. Kinesiology was the last thing I read about. And I just read this tiny blurb when I Googled it. And it was the ethos about kinesiology, which was looking at your mind and your emotions, your chemical and nutritional balance, your structure and your lymphatic system, and your energy body, and how all four of them contribute to health, which is complete holistic well-being. And it rung such a huge bell in my head. I just thought, fantastic. And there was a taster just I think it was the following week or 2 weeks after that I went along to and said, great, this is it. And then the course started a few weeks after that. So I was very lucky with the timing, or very serendipitous, that I just got straight on the bandwagon and didn't really look back.
Beautiful. And so people know you actually do not work at that fitness boutique company anymore. And you are a practicing kinesiologist, as well as other things we're going to get into. How was the transition for you? Because I think a lot of the listeners are probably that might find themselves in that job where they feel stuck and caged, and they want to move on to something that they really feel more connected to, that resonate to, that, they feel that actually my calling is different to what I'm doing now. I certainly believed that and felt that when I was in banking, and it just didn't feel like the place I should be in. And it wasn't. I was really, you could, like a sore thumb. I stuck out. And yeah, and I was really good at my job. Like, I'm very good at doing things, but I was just not very, I didn't belong. And one of the things was for me, like, oh my God, my soul just needs that feeding. But then of course, like, you start thinking, oh my God, money, oh my God, like, what do I do next? How was your transition out of that, so that people can perhaps feel a little more inspired to know that other people have done it, that it worked out, and that, you shouldn't be afraid? How was it for you?
Such a good question, because looking back, I can see this beautiful path. It's been maybe 6 years since I started, well, 6, 7 years since I started training. The first thing is when we're feeling stuck and trapped, we feel like life is very small and limited. And a lot of us think, well, I could do this or I could do that. And those are my only two options. So I had a client in the other day who said, I'm not really happy doing what I'm doing, but the only other option is to do that. And I'm like, ooh, those are what we call our blinkers. So we have a blinker of fear and a blinker of lack of time and lack of money. We've got three blinkers, and they all stop us from seeing a far bigger picture and a far bigger abundance of opportunities that are out there. And I would say the first really important thing is listen to your gut feeling and your intuition and your soul saying, this does not resonate. This is not in alignment with who I am or who I want to be. That's the first thing. And it's such a tiny nudge. I don't know if you had the same thing. Like, it's such a, we have society saying, oh, you should do this, you should do that. We've got our parents saying, oh, you should be in this role. The world says you should be, and that keeps us trapped. And it's very hard to listen to that teeny tiny voice that says, hey, there might be something better out there for us. So the first thing I say is to listen to that voice and get acquainted with it and start writing. I'm a writer, so I have to write things down, but other people, whatever it is, talking it out. And then you need to set an intention of, okay, this is not my forever. This is, our intention is so powerful with how we can create opportunities in our life. And this is not just like, oh, you manifest something. This is, no, I'm going to set an intention without any timelines or deadlines, but I know this is not my forever, and I'm going to remain open and aware of all the beautiful opportunities that are going to come across my path, whether it's a book someone recommends or someone I meet at a party or this thing that pops up on YouTube. The amount of stories of things that have happened, and I guess in my life and in your life, of like all these little signs that kind of guide you. And then knowing that where you are is not forever, it's just a lily pad. I love this analogy. Everything that you do is a lily pad that's going to leap you somewhere else. So you're not wasting time. So don't panic. You are biding your time. You are gaining new skills. You are learning. You are growing. You're evolving where you are. And you're learning patience, because the next big thing or the next small thing is just around the corner. You just have to remain open to it. You have to start exploring it, and don't panic. You're not wasting time. You're learning and growing until the next thing comes. So it's taking
that for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's always got to be organic. I think another thing, we see instant success stories in social media. We see people who have got their life sorted, and we think, oh man, that's quick. Doesn't happen that way. It has to be slow. It has to be organic. It has to be real. It has to be authentic. And it takes a long time to know who you are in life, let alone who you are as a practitioner. And you just need to get some miles under your belt, some years of experience. And with the money thing, I always say, just have a part-time thing going on. I've always had part-time jobs. I still have one now, and I love it, luckily. I didn't love the last ones. But again, that's time. It takes time to find that part-time thing that will financially support you while you can enjoy growing your business without the financial pressure on it, because clients will feel that and they'll feel really put off, like, oh, she's only in it for the money. Yeah, so we've got to pay our bills, but yeah, we've also got to enjoy it, thrive in it.
I think you made a very good point. For me, it was definitely my strategy at the time was, well, first of all, how much do I need really to live? And what I'm making is more than I need, so in banking, but I'm not happy. So if I leave, how much do I need? So I actually I saved quite a bit of money to be able to leave, without stressing if I didn't find something that would give me a part-time opportunity. But thankfully, it just worked out for me. It was like, I started getting classes and teaching more and more. And then actually I started making a salary out of teaching yoga, which I was really impressed about. So I thought, oh my gosh. And I didn't have to travel all over London. I just really focused on one area where I lived. And it was really good that way, because the last thing I wanted to do is stress out. going around. But definitely at the back of my mind, one thing that I realized was I definitely need less than I thought I needed. Sometimes like you have more money coming in if you have a job like we did, and then you spend a lot of it on things you don't actually need, and you realize I could totally live without this, less stress and less pressure.
Yeah, and also when you start doing this and you start digging your hands into the earth and getting gritty with your life and what you want to do, it's supposed to be challenging. It's not supposed to be easy.
Yeah.
So you're going to sacrifice some things like a nice holiday, or expensive meals, or whatever it is that you just really, good food, whatever it is that you love in your life right now. But you're going to get to like the core of who you are within this journey, and that is the most rewarding, validating, empowering, beautiful way to experience being alive. Like the emotional breakthroughs that I've had, and I know that you've had through this journey. It's like you can play it safe and play by the rules and stay in that place of security. And it's not always as easy as just take a leap of faith. I also don't like that. Like, oh, just quit your job and just do it. Like, that's not realistic. You need to have structure in place. But you've got to believe, you've got to have trust. You've got to trust yourself and trust that the path will unfold as it's meant to. And instantaneous plans and things won't happen that way. It's supposed to be a bit challenging, but it's so rewarding. And as you said, you don't need as much as you think you do. That's against society and cultural programming,
Yeah,
putting
totally.
it in there.
Yeah, totally, 100%. And I like what you said, overnight success is never overnight. Like it takes a long time to get there. It's just like people who just see the tip of the iceberg when you finally got to the top of it. So they're like, ooh, overnight, she just, oh man, I've been swimming up the stream for a very long time and I'm just peeking my head out. It's not overnight. So that's a very interesting concept because of how social media has portrayed everything, as you rightfully said. But let's go back to, so you had these part-time jobs that you were doing, not loving, but doing it while you were building your business. And then of course we had, I'm going to quote the title of a movie because the time where the earth stood still for 2 years and it's like we were in a vortex. When I look back, I'm like, I can't believe it's been, what happened to these years? Like they just went away. Nobody knows what they did, what they were, like nothing. It was just like pause. And how did you manage? Because obviously that was very challenging, to be growing your business, but then oh my gosh, did you bring everything online? And that was good for online businesses, but how did you manage and navigate the space? And also, obviously, we're gonna the kinesiology is the base ground for what comes next, which is what you're currently doing. But I'd like to know that transition now from obviously starting your business, working, and nobody knew what was coming, so we all like very positive about the future, and then oh.
Oh yeah. Well, for a lot of people, that 2020 was my awakening, and it gave me so many gifts as well as so much pain as it did for most people. So and you know what's really interesting, when I talk about this, I notice that there's a little bit of shame that comes up when I say this, but it's good that you know that it's there. But so in 2020 I had to move out of London because I couldn't work. I couldn't do a hands-on therapy. My part-time job disappeared. I broke up with that lovely person that I had been with for 3 years. It all happened at the same time. So I had to move back in with my parents and I couldn't practice. I had to just live and exist and figure out what I was going to do and try not to panic. And I did panic. I panicked like for the whole year. And then I eventually got back up and running. And I tried a few different clinics and yeah, it didn't really gel. It didn't really fit. I wasn't really finding my feet with it. It just felt so disorientating. And I'd moved out of London, which had been my home for a long time. I felt financially very unstable. Lots of stuff was coming up for me at the same, this was the case for a lot of people in those few years. In 2020, I think I finally got back on my feet and I rented a treatment room in my local town and finally started to get my confidence back. And I because I lost it. When you don't practice something, you lose your confidence so quickly. It's bizarre. But I managed to help. I did an assistant role on the kinesiology practitioner training course that got me back in the energy and the environment of the training, which is for freelancers in any kind of modality that you do. You need that community and that network around you. Otherwise, it's terribly lonely. And it's very easy to just think that you're doing it wrong and that you're never going to be good enough. And you just eventually stop. And the amount of people that I know who have done that, because it takes some grit to like cling on and say, oh no, I do want to do this and I am good at it. And one day I'll make money from it. It's all leading and building somewhere. You just have to stay on that raft during those choppy seas. And luckily my raft was a brilliant treatment room that I decorated and made my own. I started getting people coming in. And then I upgraded and I moved to a really beautiful city in the UK called Cambridge. And I've now got my treatment room here, which is even more aligned. So it's just this continual, the more you do something, the more aligned you become with it, the more you feel that it becomes a part of you, because there's no separation between who you are and what you do. When you're doing something like this, it's the same with you. You cannot separate your life and yourself from what you do. Mm-hmm. It's just an intricate, interwoven enmeshment of your life and what you live and breathe. So that's what the journey is. That's what you become. It's really beautiful.
It is. And, you're obviously sharing all the highlights and the high reel, as we quoted social media before, which is beautiful. Of course, it comes with a lot of pain and growth and trauma, which is actually the topic of today. And although kinesiology is such a beautiful practice and so good for understanding our body and where we are in space and a lot of even our energetic body, I think you dove into two very unique modalities that I'd like to share more about with the audience, because they really go deep into the energetics, but also the soul. So you do two things, and we're going to start with the soul contract, and you do also divine healing. And the soul contract, I feel, this is from my personal experience, almost feels like step one to kind of get your blueprint of yourself. Like, the numbers don't lie, as they say. And we are created by this perfect architect that puts everything into numbers and shapes. So it makes so much sense. And when people understand what it is, when you explain it, they will probably click with this. And then obviously the divine healing is like, okay, now I know my blueprint and I need to get deep into the traumas of my life and actually really shake up the things that are stuck so that I can blossom in these powerful characteristics that I hold and perhaps haven't been able to explore because sometimes from childhood our parents stop us, or because society, or because like very limiting beliefs, or because life just happens and we haven't had the time or even the knowledge or awareness to go down these deep understandings of our soul. So can we speak about soul contract? First of all, how did you find it and why did you start? And then what it is and everything we need to know about it.
As I was saying earlier, sometimes you get these lily pads and these little signs that help you leap from one thing to another. So this was last year, and I'd been looking for another part-time job. I'd been waitressing with a catering company and doing kinesiology, and I'd been looking for such a long time to find a job that was aligned with me spiritually, emotionally, and with the same belief system, and couldn't find it, pin in a haystack. So one day I just gave up. I just said, right, I'm not going to look for a part-time job anymore. I'm just going to do kinesiology. I'm just going to focus on doing treatments. And then the next day I see something advertising a remote part-time job working for this beautiful company called the Center for Conscious Ascension. And it was the exact hours, the exact wage, the exact everything. And I started, I think, a week and a half later. And it was, it always makes me laugh when Nicholas, who I work for, when I emailed him with my CV and everything, he said, can you just send me back your birth date and your full name on your birth certificate? And so he obviously looked at my soul contract and said, yep, she's great. She's great for the business. That's what he tells me. So yeah, so that the divine alignment of that was beautiful. And I'm very ungrounded. That's in my soul contract. I'm very mental, very up in my head, very kind of woo spiritual, but find it very hard to ground into my body. And this job gives me a lot of grounding. And I manage all the trainings. And one of the trainings was soul contract reading. And I thought, oh, I should probably do it because, I need to know what students are doing, how it works. And I loved it. I fell in love with it instantly. And I'd had a soul contract reading and I really enjoyed it. I thought, well, this is absolutely amazing. I love this. And then I kind of forgot about it. And then I did the training and looked at my numbers again. And I thought, okay, I get this. This is quite life-changing. And I think about them every day in relation to my actions in my way of being, of who I am. It's like a map, and I can just pull it down and have a look at it and think, okay, that's why I'm doing that. That's where I'm at. And so, yeah, that's how I discovered soul contract reading.
Brilliant. That's such a good story. Okay, so let's go more into details about what a soul contract reading is.
Yeah,
if somebody was coming to you.
Yeah, so the soul contract reading is basically a form of numerology, to put it really simply. And each soul, as you say, there's a divine architect. And before we come to Earth, which is a very hard playground, it's where we come to learn to feel emotions. So it's why we have quite intense experiences when we're here. But believe it or not, we all queue up to get here. Before we come here, our soul chooses what experiences that we kind of want to have, and these are mapped into our soul contract, or you can call it a soul plan or a spiritual map. And these are the experiences that we're going to be having, and it's very abstract. It's not like you will have this job and be working there. It's like this is your karma. These are where you're going to find challenges that you're going to grow from. These are the talents we want you to have to overcome the karma and to reach your goals. And your goals are what you're really here to do. And they feed into your soul destiny, which is exactly why you're here and what you're meant to be doing. And so you can fully embody it and come into who you really are. And the work was channeled in the 1980s by a man called Frank Alpha. And he taught Nicholas in person, who taught me. So the lineage is very strong and very direct. And the lovely thing about a soul contract reading, when you train in it, you don't just learn it, you kind of embody it, you become it. It's like a transmission. So when you have a reading, I'm giving you that transmission of your chart, and it's very special. And I record it. So you listen to it once, and you probably get about 20% when you're listening to it live, because that's how much sometimes we can take in. And then you listen to it again and again, and you feel the deeper layer of understanding and meaning come through every time. So that's kind of what a soul contract reading is.
Brilliant. I love that. And I must say, from my own experience, a lot of things resonated through, like, so real, so true. One of the things that I really enjoy about it is that as the person that is being read, or whose numbers are being read, you're not just sitting there. You actually are very participant into this conversation, so that those pennies can drop and that things feel relatable. And there is no, there's no cheating, trying to like say, oh, this is what you are or that you had experienced. So it's actually like, this is what the numbers mean. How does it apply to you? So you actually are very responsible for that interaction and how your numbers apply to you, which I like, because sometimes the problem with this industry that we're in, I hate calling it an industry, but let's call it for what it became, is that it has a lot of charlatans and a lot of people that are just, in for the money, and they say whatever they need to say. They have these buzzwords that are everywhere, such as manifesting, or such as, we talk about it all the time, healing, consciousness, awareness, ascension. Like, those are beautiful words and they have a lot of power, but they are used so out of context and for for selfish reasons, and it drives me nuts. And so the beautiful thing about this is that it's actually quite pragmatic as well for a person that perhaps is not very much into the spiritual realm yet, or they haven't really understood that part of themselves, because we are souls having this human experience, and you can really match the numbers mean, and the categories that they fall under. So if it's a physical karma or spiritual karma, and also their values, like what they mean, the meaning, and you can apply it to yourself, knowing, okay, actually this makes sense, and you will know that. So you're not even pretending to know what it actually is, and the person is involved in sharing. I love that. It's such a good participation of the person, because, as you said, you probably get 10% when you're hearing it the first time when you're doing it, 20% when you listen to the recording, and you have to really go back a lot of times to actually understand it fully. But also the practice. I like what you said when you did yours. You every day, for whatever action you take, you go back to your numbers and understand what they mean, because I feel like, as with everything, we can have the awareness, but if there is no practice and action, everything is lost, right? So, and it's very easy to get lost because we get busy and life is crazy. So that is a very powerful, I think, side of soul contract reading, which is why I really wanted to have this conversation, because people really should take the time to invest into this, because it's something you do once and you really take it on board and appreciate so much what it gives you, and a deeper understanding of yourself, especially if you feel like, oh my God, I don't belong anywhere. Why don't I belong? Like, what's happening? For me, that was definitely the case. And then obviously this translates, as I mentioned before, into this divine healing, which I think is, well, it's divine, as the name says. And I'd like you to also take me to why you started and how it was for you to experience it before you even became a practitioner.
Oh my gosh, yes. The only thing I was going to say, just on something you said about it not just being for spiritual, I put air quotations, spiritual people. Chantal and I feel exactly the same about the energy vampires and spiritual cloaks. That's what I call them. The people who are takers. They are abusers of their power, and they often fall into positions within the well-being and healing industry. You've got to be careful. But the one thing I was going to say is, you don't have to be spiritual to have a soul contract reading. It's going to what we do. And, you said it's like a conversation. I want to know where you're at in your life, so I can tailor so we can both get an understanding of where in your chart is playing up the most. So for some people, their karma might be, I'm kind of dealt with that. I feel good about that. For some people, they might not even realize it's coming to bite them on the bum. So then you can make targeted recommendations of like how you can start moving through that. So I just wanted to say that, because such a good point that you made, and it's for everyone to understand themselves, no matter who you are or what you believe in. So yeah.
And let's go back to the divine healing. So how you experienced it before you became a practitioner.
Yeah, so divine healing, I hadn't actually had it before I trained in it, but it was made by kinesiologists. So I immediately thought, okay, this is fantastic, because kinesiology is just very powerful, and God, I love it. So that was the first thing. And I thought, okay, if there's a way for me to work with people who aren't immediately in my vicinity, so I can work with people who aren't in the UK, then I want to know what that is. So in divine healing, we basically bypass the physical body. So kinesiology, we use muscle testing to communicate with the body's consciousness, to get answers of, what are you sensitive to? What emotions are linked to that symptom? What's true and what's not, what's relevant, what's irrelevant. But divine healing takes it to a whole nother level. And I'm guided by my higher self, and I work with your higher self to release what you might not even realize that you need to release and heal from. So divine healing is divinely guided healing. I'm not doing the healing, you are. And all we're really doing is using the lovely, the law of ask and receive, to ask things to be cleared, released, and healed from the mind, from the body, from the energy body. And I'm guided as to what needs releasing. And I'm still wrapping my head around it. It's a very powerful therapy. And I call it my newborn baby, because I'm still really understanding its power. And I know I'm going to have it for the rest of my life, like a child. And I'm still figuring it out. But it's very powerful. I do it on myself a lot, and I've had huge emotional breakthroughs. And my soul contract is the karma is I struggle to feel emotions. I didn't even realize that. And I look back on my life and I think, oh yeah, I suppressed a lot. And it all came up this year through doing divine healing on myself and through other people doing it on me. So I trained in it for myself before I even trained in it to help clients. It was a very selfish reason I trained in it. But it's not really selfish, because the more healed and whole and empowered I am, the more I'm in a position to heal and not heal, but empower others to heal. So that was that's my divine healing journey. And I do work with clients, and it's it's unlike anything else. Well, you've had it. It's quite different, but I say it's quite bonkers, but it's very powerful and it does amazing shifts.
It does. You mentioned it's your higher self talking to the client's higher self.
Yes.
And obviously, I've experienced it, one thing that I obviously think is nice to explain is that you are talking, you're asking permission to some esoteric being that is there, and you are also thanking when that's done. One of the things that I find very fascinating is when you know that there is a blockage or there is resistance or there is something that is lingering, and then how you know that it's been cleared. Can you just take me through that process, or how you feel it, and how you are able to actually, even through the screen, because obviously you work with a lot of people that are not in your practice room, you feel that energy leaving, and then that there is an opening and you can carry on, because it's very step by step.
Yeah. So I think a lot of it is just falling into flow and alignment with yourself. And again, this is something that takes time. And I think all the years I've been doing kinesiology have really built that foundation for me, because I like to emotionally probe people so that any resistance that is lingering, we bring it out. So, for example, if we're releasing a hidden subconscious ego agenda or a self-sabotaging behavior, or we're undoing an addiction, all of these things, whether it's a physical issue, an energy issue, or an emotional issue, they all have deep unconscious programs that are locking them in place. And because I'm so aware of my own, because I've done so much on myself, I'm aware when other people haven't fully touched and connected with theirs. It's like when the ego is trying to hide from a torchlight, and I'm just like, where are you? Let's bring you out into the open and let's dissolve you, because that's all we're doing. We're bringing awareness. I'm getting you to feel it. I want you to, all we're doing is helping you feel and connect with the emotion, with the ego program, with anything that's locked in your subconscious. I'm getting you to feel it. And then I listen to cues from you. I want to know what your body's doing, whether you're seeing lights or feeling pins and needles or yawning or burping or crying. But I also feel it as well. And I don't even understand how I feel it. It's just that lovely, anyone who works with clients, it's that lovely energy that you have with a client, whether it's in person or on a screen. And that's the most important thing in a business that you need to continually nurture, is to be in your most authentic self. So you attract the clients that are a vibrational match for you, that you work very well with. And I find that I work with people who are like me, who struggle to feel things, or who have suppressed things, or who are ungrounded, or are very sensitive or emotional. And that makes it very easy for me to work with them. So it all comes down to the more authentic you are with who you are, the more you can be of service to others.
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like we need to tap a little bit into ego, because obviously the ego is not necessarily a bad thing. It keeps us safe. It gives us the identity we need here. But it becomes a problem when it has its own agenda, as you mentioned. And funny enough, in the last session that I did with you, that really manifested. Like, it really came out. And in the first one, it almost felt much easier
Oh,
And then
yeah.
the second one was like, the ego was like, don't you dare touch me.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
yeah,
Divine healing's not meant to be comfortable. It's
no,
meant
it
to be
wasn't.
a comfortable experience because, we all want to feel good and nice, but when we have to get the dark, gritty, ugly, shameful parts of us out and bring them out into the light, it's not going to be a smooth ride always. But that's when it's going to be, that's when the alchemy is. The pain is the alchemy that transforms you from being completely unaware of what was going on to looking in the mirror and being like, oh, damn, this is what's been playing out. It's not going to be comfortable. So I'm glad that you said that. That resistance is totally normal.
It is. And so how do you identify, like, how do you, with dissolving the agenda, but you're not making sure, you're making sure, I guess, that you're not breaking the person, because obviously taking the ego away all at once and all together and all of it can make somebody feel even more lost after. So how do you prevent that from happening so people understand how to deal with it? Because I think that's a very big emotional, shift they're going to feel when the
Yeah.
ego is not in control anymore.
I think it's having awareness before you come into a session. I mean, you will never have a session with me without your higher self already kind of having agreed to it,
Mm-hmm.
because our higher selves, our one higher self are colluding together to bring you on my path and to have this experience with me. So that's the first thing I trust, and the client can trust as well. The second thing is I always set a really powerful intention before every session that I do with someone for that person to receive exactly what they need to receive in that session. So my ego is not in the way of, oh, they must feel better, they must feel healed, they must, no, it's just what they need to receive. And it's not always what I think that they need, because
Mm-hmm.
again, that's my ego. And the third thing is we will just, in a session, it's like a snowflake on top of an iceberg of what your ego is and all the programs. So even though it might be a deep one for you that might really zing and resonate and affect you deeply, it's just one layer of a many layered cake. So we only have a 90-minute or, maximum 2 hour session. We're never going to unbalance you to that extent, but you will feel a shift. You should feel a shift. And it might take you a few days to recover, or you might feel amazing. It's not for me to know. There's no, everyone's so different. But this is why we do it in layers. We do it incrementally, because as you said, we would go mad if we dissolved the ego completely. We would just end up in a loony bin. It would just be a very shocking experience for the human soul. So you dissolve the layers of the ego and the programs gently, gently, with love and with grace. And it's a very loving therapy. This is done with a lot of love from me, and a lot of love from my healing team and our higher selves, and from God. It's a very blessed, loving, graceful, but sometimes uncomfortable therapy.
You said healing team. Okay,
Yeah.
are we talking angels? What are we talking?
Oh, yeah. So my healing team are sort of, I guess, my guides. So I continually learn divine healing. There's lots of levels to keep learning, because again, like soul contract reading, you don't learn the material, you embody it and you start to transmit it to the people that you work with. So I'm continually learning and embodying and healing myself and changing, so I can do a much better job for other people and live a much more aligned life. So my healing team was introduced to me in the last training, and they are my people. So they are my helpers. Yeah, whether you want to call them guides or angels or guardian angels. We think that we live in this 3D world, that what is real is all we can see. And if only we knew the intangible, the multidimensional existence that we actually live in. And this is the main thing about divine healing, is multidimensional healing. We're not just healing you now, we're healing your past and we're healing your future timelines. We're healing your ancestral lineage and your progeny and your future generations. We're healing you in this dimension and in other dimensions, in this reality, in other realities. We're healing your energy body, your physical body, your emotional body, because they all interact and interweave together. So it's full on multidimensional badass kind of shifting and changing happening, but you feel it, but you can't see all this stuff around us, you know, but it's there. It's all there.
Yeah, wow, I love it. I could actually picture it, and it makes so much sense. You know, we are really stuck in believing that everything is 3D. Schools teach you that if something is not in a certain way, it's not there, or even, you know, I mean, maybe physics attempts, you know, to go a little bit more quantum about things because, well, we need to talk about energy. But if you do quantum energy, then of course, or quantum physics, then you actually really go deep into this energetics that a lot of scientists don't even know about or care to know about. And I've noticed this, how powerful it is to actually look at our experience as much more than just this exoteric experience, this tangible, materialistic one, and look at a much more divine, especially divinely guided, and much more esoteric, because it really makes things make sense. You know, we and is it fascinating how these teachings are not new, they've always been there,
Yeah.
but somehow I feel like the more we get advanced in society, and I put that in brackets because sometimes I'm like we're totally going backwards, but science has become, you know, if you can't test it in a test tube, it doesn't exist. If you can't, or, you know, like nothing is really about exploring more than what they can see. That's why sometimes I feel like a lot of these practitioners, especially the more allopathic ones, are getting stuck into just looking at, well, I've proven it. But you actually haven't, because you're just considering the 3D part. So there's much more to this. And even then, not everything is a straight answer. Imagine how, well, it would be simpler, but also boring, to have a life that is like one straight way. Like everything is so expanded and vast that you can't possibly just say this is how it is and that's it. There are very few things that are that way. But just like science, religion is also taken away the spiritual element of it almost, you know, like, yes, God is this concept, this being, but then there's nothing in between you and God other than in some religions you have the priests, in some religion you have the pastors, and then there's nothing else. Like if you believe in angels, or, you know, like who gives the authority to people to actually discredit things that they can't see, but have been always a concept that is much understood by some more enlightened people, if you want to call it that, so people that are looking at least to grow a little bit more beyond this shell we're living in on this experience. So it's really fascinating. And then you, of course, you have doctors that are great at actually doing that and looking at everything so holistically, which is beautiful. So I can definitely attest to one thing, and I actually would like you to actually explain this part. When we're doing this healing, which I've experienced with you, one of the things that fascinates me is that I actually don't remember most of the things we talked about. I remember maybe a word or a concept, and then all the things that I felt. Oh, I can remember a little bit vaguely what I felt, especially if it's uncomfortable. But there is something I just forget what we talked about. I cannot tell you what comes where, and then I have these like, wow, you know, like experiences the day after where things align, or I can have a very bad day and then things start settling again. Can you tell me why our conscious mind cannot remember the conversation that you have with your clients while you're doing the healing?
Oh, yeah, it's because we have unlocked and unblocked and made awareness to something that was previously maybe below our level of consciousness. So it was just running in the background. We have so many things running in the background that is controlling our life. I think they say 90% of our life is controlled by our subconscious beliefs and programs. So when we release it, you shouldn't remember it, because if you remember it, it's your ego grappling to rebuild that program. So as we dissolve it, it shouldn't take up space in your mental body. And what you said before is really interesting. You know, how some people believe in stuff and some people don't. What is this experience? I think all of us are so mental. We're so, if we can see it, we can believe it. If we can touch it, we can believe it. And we have this thing within us, which is called our intuition. It's our sixth sense. It's our feeling. It's our heart. It's our soul. It's the nudges. It's the intuition. And this is the most powerful sense that we could have, and it's been dumbed down, it's been hidden, it's been repressed, it's been you know, what's the word I'm thinking of? It's been ignored. It's been, in any way possible, it's been neglected to be mentioned as real. Yet the more you can tune in and connect to it, the more you start to resonate what is true for you and what isn't. And the empirical evidence doesn't even come into it. You just feel it and you know it. And that's the most powerful sense that you can have. I think in this lifetime, we are feeling sentient beings. We're not thinking beings, we're feeling beings. So yeah, we live in a world that distracts us and pulls our attention away and disconnects us. And most of us are walking around with our heads under our arms. We're not even conscious we have a soul. But when you start to read things and they resonate with you, it's resonating with the truth within you. And that's not something that you can tangibly calculate. Although, yeah, it's just not something you can do. But more people are tuning into that, and it's like this mass awareness and awakening, which is coming through more and more strongly. And it's not deluded people being like, "Oh, I wish Earth was a nicer place. Let's believe in something lovely." That's denial. That's such a different feeling. That's like the difference between authentic gratitude and forcing yourself to be grateful for something. They are vastly different when you feel them. It's the same with this. Like, you just know something to be true and you feel it within you, and your experiences then reflect that back to you, because what you feel and think and believe creates your reality completely. And I see this in my life, and this is not, manifesting. This is like embodying the truth of who you are and then seeing it reflected back to you day after day after day. And we call it in the Center for Conscious Ascension, where I work, following the spiritual flow, the spiritual signature. And the more you follow that, and all that is what's right and true and the best in your highest good and for the highest good of all in this very moment, and do that. And you don't need to worry about anything else. And the more you do that, the more you start to, your life, I've gone off on a tangent, the more your life just seems to flow, and you find those people who resonate with you, and your life, your reality shifts on such a dramatic level. Like, I know yours has, mine has, and it's such a more beautiful way of living. It's such an incredible existence. It's so limitless. It's so expansive. It's so exciting to be alive, rather than, living in fear and worry and lack, which is what society wants you to do.
Yeah, we're just existing.
Yeah.
And we are in that negative space. Instead, now we're living and flowing. I like that, flowing with the spirit.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, Antonia, how can people work with you?
Okay, so they can work with me in a couple of different ways. So obviously I offer the soul contract readings, which I always recommend to anyone who hasn't worked with me before, because we have a lovely conversation together. We look at your soul contract and you can start to understand who you are a little bit more, and you get to know me and my energy. And if you feel comfortable with me and you want to start working on some more deeply rooted traumas or emotional issues or blocks and obstacles that are stopping you from actually living in that spiritual flow, which is what ego programs do, they block you from it, then divine healing is something that comes after that. And you can have it as little as often as you like. I kind of recommend every 3 to 4 weeks have a session. And yeah, and that's how people can work with me. And I welcome anyone who, resonates with me to get in touch and explore explore who they are and get some self-awareness. Yeah.
Brilliant. And if people are in Cambridge or UK and or close enough to Cambridge and want to come and see you in person, they can as well, right?
Of course, yeah. I always say kinesiology is like the stepping stone. It's connecting mind and body. And then soul contract reading is connecting soul, mind, and body. And then divine healing is very much soul, mind, and body again. So it's kinesiology is sort of more of an entry point for people to actually understand, oh, my emotions sit in my energy field of my body. Cool. And then you shift upwards and you're like, I want to know who I am and I want to heal who I am. And then that's soul contract reading and divine healing.
I love that. Thank you so much. This was so good. And I'm really happy that you got into this work. I know I'm going to quote one of my lecturers who shared this on graduation for me, saying, you know, we best serve the person that we once were. So I love that just resonated with me. I even shared it yesterday when I posted the podcast with Dr. Sherry, because it's just such a powerful thing to know. Actually, if you experience things firsthand and you haven't just learned them on a book or on a manual, they are so much more impactful, because, and also you become so much more um, understanding and empathetic of the other person's feelings, because you have experienced them yourself. And then you can just be, you know, you can serve that person better, just like you have been doing for yourself. So thank you for sharing your journey. Thank you for doing all the healing that you're doing on yourself. And thank you for the work that you do.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And thank you, for Chantel, for connecting people with people. You know, that's really empowering. And it's a real gift that you have of doing this. And we're very lucky that you are, because we need more people like you connecting people together.
My pleasure. Cool. Thank you so much for being on the show, and I'll see you soon. Bye. Thank you so much, Antonia. And thank you so much, guys, for staying on the podcast, for listening to this wonderful episode. I couldn't be happier to have shared this with you, because I really found these modalities so powerful myself, and I'm going through a journey of healing, and I really think that they can resonate with so many of you if you are on the same path, if you maybe need a little bit of direction and support. And I really feel that Antonia has a beautiful way of holding space, which feels safe and private and so nurturing. And you know, if you have to heal with anybody, I really think she's a great person to do it with. So if you want to know more about Antonia, go into the show notes. All the links to her work are there, so you can get in touch with her directly and enjoy. And as always, if you like the podcast, please do share it, give us a rating, help us grow. If you're watching on YouTube, thumbs up, please. And I will see you next week. Bye.